In this video, we're going to show you how to install the front strut on your Ford Mustang located behind your front wheels. Let's go ahead and remove our center cap and we'll go ahead and locate this notch. We're going to use two tools for this job. One is going to be the pry bar to go ahead and pop that center cap off, but you want to protect the finish on the wheel. I'm going to use this plastic trim tool to put behind my pry bar. And then just work your way around. And then pop that off. Use your 21mm socket, go ahead and loosen and remove the lug nuts. With the lug nuts removed, grab the wheel, remove it and set it aside. We want to go ahead and remove our brake caliper and caliper bracket as one assembly. To do so, we're going to remove the two 15mm bolts on the back side supporting this to the knuckle. Now I want to remove our caliper and bracket as one assembly here. Sometimes you might have to use a pry bar to get underneath here to separate this from the rotor. Be careful when doing this because the rotor itself will be loose as well. Now when we remove the caliper and the bracket, we're going to use a securing strap. We want to hold this up. We don't want the weight of the caliper and the bracket to pull down on the flex hose up top here. Remove your brake rotor, set that aside. Now up on top, you want to go ahead and open up your hood. On the top of your shock unit here, you're going to find a nut. We're going to use a 21mm socket with our impact gun. We want to loosen and remove that. Now we have the nut there. Go ahead and remove that upper cap. We're going to set those aside. On the forward portion of our shock unit here, we want to go ahead and separate our ABS wire bracket from the knuckle unit itself. And we're going to use a 24mm socket to loosen and remove this nut. That'll allow us to go ahead and pull that off. Now I want to separate my ABS wire from the bracket itself. I'm going to pinch this little tab on the back here. That's a retainer. I'm going to pull that through the bracket. And up here, go ahead and straighten out these little tabs a little bit and slide our ABS wire out of the bracket. Now we're going to remove our 24mm nuts off of the bolts here. The bolt head side is a 21mm, so we're going to put our wrench on the other side to secure that. Now we're removing the nuts, but we're keeping the bolts installed here. Now I'm going to go ahead and rotate this wheel so that it is straight in line here. And we have a jack underneath our control arm. So what we want to do, we want to go ahead and raise up our jack underneath our control arm. Now the purpose of this here is we want to keep the coil spring compressed a little bit. Once we remove this here, that control arm can drop down. We want to try and prevent that from happening. So we'll go ahead and put some pressure on that. Straighten this out. I want to go ahead and remove our bolts from the shock unit to our knuckle. go ahead and tap on the shock unit. Now our knuckle will come forward. With that separated, go ahead and work the shock unit out. Now we have our old shock here. You can pull off the dust shield. Now we have our old shock here and we have our new unit right here. I'm gonna go ahead and spin the nut off the top here, set that aside. I wanna take this bump stop here and we wanna spin that off. We're gonna reuse this. Now on our new shock, we have the retainer here because this is a gas charged shock. And once we remove this, this is going to expand upward. What we're simply going to do is go ahead and line that up. Now this here is a dust shield for the tube itself. Now you have a couple different options. If your upper damper here or rubber bushing is in good shape, you can reuse this. Your other option is once this expands up, you would put this on and put this on top. This bolt or the top portion of our shock will then go ahead and go into the body of the vehicle. So you can install just these two or the whole unit with the dust shield. Let's push our knuckle up into place. Push in our upper bolt and get our lower bolt lined up. Once we have the bolts in, let's go ahead and start the nuts on the back side. So you can grab that knuckle and go ahead and rotate that. Get these started. Now at this point, we're going to straighten out our knuckle and we have our retaining band right here. And we're going to pop this off and this is going to expand up into the body itself. I'm going to use a block of wood on the top and compress the shock unit. Compress that down. Pop that and feed that up into the body. Now that we have our clip off, we want to go ahead and install our cap and our bushing here. Continue to pull this down. Gonna slide that over and feed that right back up into the body again. Now I want to go ahead and lower our jack out from underneath. Set that aside. Now, if you're using a lift, this is the process you want to do. You're going to lower the vehicle down on the lift and then put a floor jack underneath the control arm. We need to compress that suspension up to bring the shaft up through the middle here. Now we're going to replace these pieces. There's a bushing and a sleeve. Take our new bushing and our sleeve, slide that over. Using that floor jack, go ahead and compress that, and you can see the shock rod coming up through the middle. It'll get to a point where it pretty much stops. Install the lid here and put the nut on. Let's go ahead and snug this down a little bit. Get and torque this down to 74 foot-pounds. Once you have the top torque down into place, if you're using a floor jack, you can go ahead and remove that from the lower control arm. Lower the vehicle back onto your jack stands. Then we want to go ahead and torque down our strut bolts to 148 foot-pounds. Install our bracket. And when you install your bracket, make sure that the bottom portion of it goes through the stud on the bottom. There is only one nut securing this bracket. Let's go ahead and snug that down. You want to make sure that it's tight, but it doesn't have to be super tight. It's just holding your ABS wire in place. So make sure that's pretty snug there. Install the upper portion of your ABS wire first. Push it in, and then install the lower retainer button right there. And go ahead and straighten out the wheel. When we install our rotor here, we want to go ahead and make sure that our surface is clean on our wheel hub. And we're going to apply some anti-seize on that face. Install the brake rotor. I'm going to install one lug nut to keep this rotor flush. That's going to help us when we go to put our caliper and bracket with pads back on. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this here. Let's remove our securing strap here. Bring everything over and go ahead and line things up onto your rotor and slide this into place. I'm going to go ahead and try to line up our upper bolt. You're going to work that caliper and bracket around a little bit so you can get that to line up. And once it lines up, get it started a few threads. And do the same for the bottom. Let's go ahead and snug down these bolts. Go ahead and torque down the bolts to 85 foot-pounds. Don't forget to remove the lug nut. After you remove that lug nut, hop into the vehicle, pump up the brakes. Make sure that this caliper compresses the brake pads up against the rotor and the pedal feels good. At that point there, install your wheel. Go ahead and install your wheel. We're going to start our lug nuts by hand. Once you have those all started, go ahead and snug them down. At this point here, you can go ahead and lower the vehicle and torque them to spec. Go ahead and torque your lug nuts to 95 foot-pounds. Once your lug nuts are torqued, go ahead and install your center cap.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.